Hey folks, welcome back to another video. You've joined me outside at last. The weather's been so disgusting last few days. It's just been like raining, and like yesterday was such heavy rain nearly all day as well. Just about got a little briefly not quite so wet period where I could take the boy for a walk without getting completely drenched, but it is like properly grim. Today the forecast was a bit better, and it is now, but this morning it was drizzling a bit, so I didn't think I'd be able to get out today. Just enjoying the view really. Nice spot, isn't it? The weather's brightening up, Snowdon in the background. I've come to my usual spot of Lion Rock, but just a slightly different spot today to mix it up. Today's video is going to be on I don't know what the title will be, something about crazy belay things that I see. Maybe some of them are crazy, some of them are not quite so crazy, but you know, all the videos I do focus on like not necessarily the right way of doing things, because there's so many different ways, but you know, good things to do. So I thought I'd focus on a few things that I see at the crag like quite often. This was prompted by someone in the YouTube comments as well. Things that I see quite often that really shouldn't be going on. Camera gets lower and lower because it's quite heavy when I'm holding it in one arm. So yeah, those weird things that I'm sure a lot of you have seen at the top of crags and stuff before as well. But sort of with the belay focus, if I was listing weird stuff that I see climbing, crikey, that would be the longest video ever. Boy's here as well, just running around, he loves it here. This was the first crag he ever came to. I take it you might be about to watch me fall over, thankfully not. First crag he ever came to when he was little, and I had to lift him up all these bits and pieces. Now he's just running around all over the place. I'm going to put the camera on the little setup there, and you'll join me having harnessed and everything up and ready to go. I know I said I wasn't going to get sucked into sort of non-belay crazy stuff, but I thought this one was worth mentioning just while I'm tying in. Stoppers. I've done a whole video on this yonkies ago now, but a useful video, maybe watch it if you want to. If you're going to tie a stopper, which I think there's lots of positive reasons to tie a stopper, even though I don't tie a stopper by default. If you're going to tie your figure of 8, probably the most common way, get a big tail, you tie a stopper. What I really dislike seeing at the crag or at the wall or whatever is a stopper, which in isolation is a good stopper, you know, will be when I finish dressing it anyway. But what's the problem? It's that massive gap there. People can clip into that thing by mistake, whether it's your belay plate when you start to belay, or whether it's clipping into an anchor or something. It's just a weak point. So if you are going to tie a stopper, make sure it's touching the original figure of 8. So like I say, I don't tie them, but if you are going to, do it properly, right, like that. What's the problem with that though? I've got too long a tail, but that's fine, I'm not going to do it anyway, so this will cut to my normal knot in just a second. There we go, there's my normal tie-in, figure of 8, extra wrap and Yosemite finish, done a video on that as well. So, into belay craziness now. First things first, what I really dislike seeing is people getting to the top of the crag and shouting safe straight away before they've even started to build a belay. So they're not clipped into anything, they're at the top of the crag, and yeah, okay, maybe it's flat or something, but I just think it's a really sort of bad example to set. And I see this a lot even on instructor assessments where people top out on the crag, shout safe straight away, their mate takes them off belay, and then they're just wandering around the top of the crag, not on belay. For me, I always encourage people to place a last runner, even if it's really easy terrain, just before they top out, because you never know quite what you're coming up to. So you stay on belay, yeah, maybe if you did slip you'd still take a whipper, but by placing that last bit, even if it's easy terrain, sort of just before you top out, you minimise it a bit. And even if it's a whipper, it's better than flipping going all the way, isn't it, while your mate's off doing, you know, doing a wee in the bushes because they've taken you off belay or whatever. The biggest fall I've ever seen years ago, this is a friend of mine, was at the top of a crag, Bezegran down in Cornwall. They're down on the sort of the Ochre slab area, and they virtually finished the route, and they just got into this grassy bit to finish where I could definitely see people at some point shouting safe. They thankfully didn't. They slipped on that grass, rock shoes and grass, never a good combination. Flipping miles, like in that guidebook it's measured in feet, and I think the route is something like 105 feet, and he fell past his belay, lucky not to go in the sea and stuff, and that was a helicopter rescue, lived to fight another day thankfully. He fell so far because a couple of bits of gear ripped, because he was relatively inexperienced I guess at the time. But imagine, you know, if he had shouted safe, which he could have done, different kettle of fish altogether. Now that's quite an extreme example, and is that relevant to topping out at the top of Stanage where it's nice and flat, for example? I don't know, but it just sets that sort of standard, doesn't it? If you get into the habit of just staying on belay, I just don't see that there's any advantage to shouting safe before you are actually safe. Rant over. Might be a ranty video, this one. Just wait till you've built the whole belay though, that's my thoughts on it. Okay, so I've got some gear up here, so I've plugged in a bit, I can clip into it. Let's say I'm going to do out of reach anchors just for this example. So what I see some people doing, and I'm going to stay in shot so I'm not going to go miles out of reach, but what I see some people doing, they get that first runner in, part of the belay, first anchor, and that one's rubbish but it'll do for this job. Get that bit in, do a clove hitch, because we're doing out of reach anchors, remember. This will be applicable to other setups, but you'll get the idea. Right, and then I hear people shouting safe then. They're not safe, especially on that ratty #1 nut. Again, what's the advantage of shouting safe now rather than doing my next gear and going on to a fully built belay? When I've fully built that belay, I double check everything. They're all done up, everything's done up with my 2-3 points, however many. Then, when the belay is complete, and only when it is complete and I've double checked everything, then I'll shout down safe and my mate can take me off belay, because I'm bulletproof at that point. Then they can go for a wee in the bushes or put their rock shoes on or do whatever they need to do. So shout safe when you are safe. It's like a magic word in climbing. Turbo rant, that one, wasn't it? Similar theme then, in terms of, well, it's belay building, it's nothing to do with shouting safe, but I guess it's being safe, or as safe as we possibly can be. Another slightly weird thing that I see on belays is people using a quick draw as part of the belay. So place your nut, put a quick draw in it. Perhaps you're going to clove hitch into this one as part of the belay and go off to another one over here. Let's use another quick draw just to go with it. Put them in. Got to keep a little smile of rope so they're not affecting each other, so they're independent and everything. 2 clove hitches. That one's not doing anything yet, remember, so I have to do another clove hitch, won't I? Don't know where my phantom has gone. There he is. So now I can get that in. Do that up. Make sure it's all equalised and everything like that. Why don't I like this? Well, in a multi-pitch situation, it's a complete waste of gear, isn't it? Because my mate's going to want, you know, assuming they're leading next, my mate's going to want the quick draws, as many as possible. So I've used 2 quick draws. And we talk about a thing called the safety chain. So that's all the links in our setup. And we've got extra links here that we don't need, do we? Could I clove it straight into that one and get rid of that dog bone and that carabiner? Yeah, I could. Do I do that quite often? Yeah, absolutely I do, because you know, I run out of screw gates or I'm just trying to be quick or whatever. And what I could do if I do that, I could take that off entirely. Right, I've now lost 2 links from that safety chain. That's a good thing. The fewer links as possible, the better. And then I could actually use that one up there and get rid of that whole quick draw. My mate's got 1 whole quick draw extra for his pitch, and I've got less links in that safety chain. If I'm desperate, I can double it up like that, obviously. But minimise the links in the safety chain. Do things like this instead of having all these weak points and using extra gear. I say weak points because, you know, it's super strong, isn't it? 22 kilonewtons or stronger for that sling, for example, the dog bone bit. But why put extra links? Why put extra things that can come undone or get twisted or just cause weirdness, and use up extra kit and make things harder to check? And if you're an instructor type person, it confuses the situation. You know, what we do, are we belay building, are we leading, painting clear pictures to your novice climbers who are trying to milk all this information? The clearer the picture, the more they're going to get from it. So just keep quick draws out of it to begin with, but if you are going to use them, just minimise those links. I've said links in the safety chain about 1,000 times there, I think, or at least 5. Next one, sling setup this time. Don't see this one very often, thankfully, but I do see it sometimes. Work through our little checklist. Is it equalised? Yes. Is there an angle? Yes. Are they independent? No, they're not, because there's no redundancy there. If one of these explodes, you can see what's going to happen. I'm just going to slide off it because there's no knot in there. Right. On a similar theme, what I do see people doing as well sometimes is this one, to get that join out of the way. Not that it really matters for this example, but it's a good habit, isn't it? All right. They then do a knot in there, so they're ticking some of the boxes. Clip into that as usual. he doesn't want to go in. There he is, in. Get my clovitch snugged up and everything like that. I'll be down below it a bit more to make it tight and everything, but it's kind of irrelevant on this one anyway. Are they independent? No, they're affecting each other, aren't they? They're not pulling down to this point. One's pulling one way, one's pulling the other. If one of those bits of kit were to explode, then there's some extension going on and it will put shock onto the other piece. They're not redundant either, are they? Because if part of this sling did cut anywhere on a sharp edge, not that happens very often, but it can and does happen, yeah, there is a chance of it happening, then I'm just going to slide off the end, aren't I? Because there isn't that redundancy in there. So American death triangle. And that could happen with the rope as well, couldn't it? If we got rid of this sling, you could really easily tick some of the boxes of building a belay, but not all the ones we want to. I'm just going to put that there for a second. I could do exactly the same. Clip it, and then just clovitch into there, but it's the same problem, isn't it? Really unlikely to cut through a rope, exceedingly unlikely. It's unlikely to happen with a sling, it's extra unlikely to happen with a rope, but they are still affecting each other. There could be some shock loading going on if one was to fail, so just not a good thing to do. We always want to make sort of V shapes if we're doing this kind of thing down to there, or we're doing clovitches to keep that little smiler rope like I did on one of the earlier ones. If the belay building stuff is new to you, go and check out one of the more textbook videos I've done, you know, probably during last lockdown. This time I've set up with a sling again. Sling angle's just about okay, it's less than 90. Again, a common one I see, I suppose, is massive angles, far bigger than like well over 120 and stuff. Avoid that, you just put an extra force onto things. It's really popular to belay in guide mode these days, super popular. It's such a great way of doing things a lot of the time, but not always. Some people though I see are not using a guide plate for it. The guide plate has this extra hole in it. We set it up, there's other videos on that as well. But what I do see sometimes is people clipping their regular style belay plate into a master point style setup like this. They're safe, yeah, great. Taking all the slack in because they're off belay and everything, and then putting their friend, I've done that up out of habit there, shouldn't have done that one up, putting their friend below on belay, like this, okay, and then belaying as if they're in guide mode, and that's quite pretty sketchy, isn't it? You can see that there's no friction being added by this device, right? It's just running through a carabiner. That device may as well not be there. So they're belaying away, the mate falls off, and all you're going to have is the grip of your hand, and that is not going to be enough. We can't be below an anchor and realistically use it properly by getting it into the braking position. So if you've got a guide plate, great bits of kit, use it for sure. If you haven't got a guide plate, then you'll either have to use an Italian hitch or belay from down here like you normally would. Okay. On that same theme of guide plates, as I said, it's a great thing to use appropriately. Got a good setup there, put my rope in and everything. What I've seen a few times lately is a bit of weirdness with how to attach yourself as the leader to this. So for me, just use a clovitch, as you've seen me do 100 times, probably in this video even. Clovitch into a big carabiner, done. You've got loads of rope hanging off you, so it seems a kind of a pointless thing to not use the rope. Lanyards are great in the right circumstance, okay, with a a locking carabiner and all that kind of thing. For me, a self-locker on them. There's this weird trend I see occasionally at the crag, again thankfully not too often, of just using like a quick draw. So they could hoof themselves up, clip into there, okay, weighted. So weighted, is that going to come undone? Well, it can't when it's weighted, really, can it? It just, nothing can happen to it. But the problem is, one, there's a lot of moving parts going on here, so it'd be really easy when you're belaying away to, hold that open or bang it against a rock and hold it open when your mate falls off at the wrong time. And the other thing is, sometimes, we've all been here, your mate's taking flipping ages on that route, aren't they? And you get up and shuffle around a little bit, go back down. This has got a twist in it. I didn't actually do that on purpose. It's a really easy thing to do. Could be, it happens more with stiff quick draws, that as you unweight it, this thing wants to untwist, and there is a slim chance of that happening. I've actually had this happen to me in a slightly different scenario, but where I have been attached when I've been working a sport route. So you live and learn. Any climber who's been climbing a long time has made some mistakes. We learn from mistakes. That's why I'm kind of sharing these things, so you can learn from my mistakes and my experience. And obviously I'm belaying my mate in guide mode, great. that locks up hopefully in guide mode anyway, so they'll be safe, but I'll be flying past them quite possibly until the rope goes tight on perhaps the last runner, counterbalanced off them. Doesn't bear thinking about, does it really? So I don't really get the point of using a quick draw when there's much better ways of doing things that are just as quick. You're not gaining any speed from using a quick draw. Clovitch takes you a second to do. It's no quicker to put a screw gate in, or no slower to put a screw gate in there rather than a quick draw. So that's not one that I'm a fan of. You can probably tell I'm not really a fan of any of these ones I'm showing you today. On this sling setup again, I've climbed up, built my belay, got the rope caught around my leg, Clovitched in, because like I've just said, that's a really nice way of doing things. And then I think this one comes from like doing stuff on bolted anchors. If I'm on bolted anchors that are linked with a chain or some link of some description, then if you imagine that's 2 bolts, they're linked with this chain, I might clip onto one bolt and I might belay off the other one up here. And that can be an okay thing to do sometimes. It's quite a useful way of doing things, keeping things separate and efficient and whatever. But on trad stuff, putting my mate on guide mode on just one of those anchors, especially that horrible number 1 that I've mentioned already, well, it's not really a good thing to do, is it? It's a nut placed in a crack. I've got a full belay here, but I'm actually only belaying off one, so if they fall off, and that does load that one, and it does rip because it's not sharing the load with anything, then what happens? Well, that rips out, that moves double that distance down to here, and puts quite a lot of shock into the system. Now there's loads of rope as shock absorber, but we do know that the sling is static, so we want to avoid any of that as much as humanly possible. And it would mean that we're both now hanging on one bit of kit. Is it good enough to both be hanging on that one bit of kit if it does stay in? It's not particularly a great thing, is it? It's going to be pretty exciting. And does it rip it? Worst case, it might do. So that kind of crossover from a bolted multi-pitch sport style belay, not for trad. The last one I want to mention, it's nothing to do with the actual belay building itself, it's the actual process of belaying. I can't do this video sort of out without mentioning it because it's just such an important thing. You owe it to your mate, your climbing partner, to just belay like their life depends upon it, because it could do, couldn't it? We can all slip off any bit of climbing, right? So when you're belaying, just be really attentive and mindful of it, and belay properly, making sure you've always got a hand fixed on the braking strand, that kind of thing, taking in when you should be taking in, not being tempted to let go to take a picture. If you need to take that picture because it's a stellar shot, communicate with your mate, tie off the belay plate, take your shot if you're both happy that tying it off is appropriate in that situation and they're able to hang on and all that kind of thing. But just letting go while they think you've got them on belay, it's just a horrible thing. If you've climbed a bit, you'll have seen some bad belaying. It's a scary thing to watch, right? It's just so important. This sounds a bit preachy and a bit waffly, but I just can't stress how important good quality solid belaying is. Right, on that note, I hope that video is interesting. Put in the comments below things that you think are like top crazy things that you see at the crag with some sort of regularity, or things that you've just seen that are completely mind-blowing. I've seen far more things. Someone belaying off just one rattly hex on a loose block did actually say something to them. People not doing their harnesses up properly or belaying off the wrong spot. You know, there's loads of other things I could mention, but there's just a few that are sort of on that belay theme. Keep buddy checking each other, keep double checking everything you do, be thorough before you shout safe, all those kind of things. It's really important, and then you'll have a happy long climbing career ahead of you. Do fire away with any questions as always. Click the links below for the buy me a coffee thing or the t-shirt thing. I'm not wearing a Sling Mountain t-shirt, so I'm not going to unzip and show you one of them. You can even buy a Sling Mountain mug these days. A couple of people have bought them now, which is really cool. Click the like button and the subscribe button on this video. Find us on Insta, find us on Facebook. I'm rattling on about the things I say every single time, any day now. I think we're going to go over 5,000 subscribers. Massive thanks to everyone who's clicked that button. I'm so appreciative of it. Fire away those questions, as I've said. Hope you've enjoyed this video. More videos coming up very soon.